Closing ceremony. The Commissioner General, Tanzania Revenue Authority, Mr. Alfayo Kidata, the Executive Secretary, ATAF, Mr. Logan Watt, the Chairperson of ATRN, Professor Annette Ogutu, District Delegates, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me pleasure to welcome you again to this final lap of our 3-day meeting here in Dar es Salaam. Much as I explained in the morning, we have 3 items this afternoon. One is the launch of the Africa Tax Outlook. The other one is the awards, recognition for the papers that were presented. And finally, we'll have the closing ceremony. To start with, may I call upon Mrs. Mary Baine to come on the stage and lead us with respect to the launch of the Africa Tax Outlook. Mary, you're most welcome.
Mr. Alfayo Kidata, Commissioner General, Tanzania Revenue Authority, Mr. Logan Watts, Executive Secretary of the African Tax Administration Forum, Professor Annette Ogutu, the Chairperson of the Board of ATRN, distinguished board members, distinguished delegates, good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to present a few points before we launch the African Tax Outlook, the 2022 edition. The African Tax Outlook is ATAF's annual publication, with the first edition having been launched in 2016, making the 2022 edition the 7th in the series. It is a flagship publication for the African Tax Administration that arose from the necessity to make available reliable tax statistics and analysis pertaining to African tax administrations. The primary purpose of the African Tax Outlook series is to share comparative information from participating countries that facilitate analysis on the performance of African tax administrations and on the formulation of tax policies in African countries. More specifically, the African Tax Outlook is a publication that provides cross-country and regional comparisons for benchmarking. It also profiles evidence-based recommendations to reform tax policies and tax administrations. And third, it provides good practices implemented by different tax administrations in a given year that then enable different administrations to make similar reforms without necessarily having to reinvent the wheel. Ladies and gentlemen, the raw data used in compiling the ATO is accessible on the African Tax Administration Forum Data Bank, which is freely available for public consumption. We thought this important to mention because, as researchers, this is data that is collected from countries by the actual members, and therefore it is authentic data that is useful for your kind of work. The data bank is a synopsis of the African Tax Outlook data portal. It displays and describes tax administrative, customs, and macroeconomic data for all ATO participating countries. This data can be accessed and used for further analysis and research, especially by the people such as you. The African Tax Outlook data platform is also a tool that not only allows participating tax administrations to simplify the collection of the tax statistics, but also gives them an opportunity to conduct their own analysis with a view of improving their efficiency and effectiveness. The 2022 edition, which is the latest, contains revenue statistics and policy and administrative measures on 37 African countries. It includes performance-related data, ratios and trends spanning from 2010 to 2021. The main contributors to this publication are staff from revenue administrations. On an annual basis, we send out an expression of interest for revenue administration staff to participate in the compilation of this book. We have always received positive feedback, and I want to thank Revenue Authority staff that have contributed to this publication, and especially the heads of tax administrations for letting these staff participate. I also want to acknowledge the ATAF staff and teams behind the African Tax Outlook publication, and our development partners, specifically GIZ and the editors, for their continuous support towards this publication. So ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I want to invite the technical team to play a video that shows, in summary, what is contained in the African Tax Outlook, the 2022 edition. And while they do that, may I please invite the Commissioner General of Tanzania Revenue Authority, Mr. Alfayo Kidata, the Executive Secretary of the African Tax Administration Forum, Mr. Logan Watt, and the Chairperson of the ATRN Board to receive our African Tax Outlook edition, and which edition is on our website and can be accessed by members. Thank you so much. Those copies are yours to keep. And I wanted to say that we thought it relevant for the audience to hear about the ATO and also to use it as a reference. As you saw, it's already posted on our website and is very easily accessible. I want to thank you so much for your kind attention and to invite Dr. Fred Mugambi, the Vice Chair of the Board of the African Tax Research Network, to lead us in the next session of this program. Dr. Mugambi.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. My name is Dr. Mugambi Mwirigi. I'm the Vice Chairperson of the African Tax Research Network Advisory Board, and I'm a Commissioner at the Kenya Revenue Authority in charge of the Kenya School of Revenue Administration. So we are getting into a very interesting session. And this is a session where we are going to be awarding our best papers and recognizing people who have played a pivotal role in this Congress. And therefore, in this recognition and awards session, we will recognize and honor people who have been instrumental throughout this Congress. And we shall also give awards to the best papers in two main categories. We will have the best overall research paper, and we'll also award 3 papers in the category of best developing research papers. But let me start by saying something about the 4th volume of the African Multidisciplinary Tax Journal, in short, AMTJ. The ATRN is currently accepting submissions of papers for consideration in volume 4 of the AMTJ, and the deadline will be on the 10th of November, 2023. This is a very important deadline. 10th of November, 2023. The link is https://www.atrnafrica.org/amtj. You'll find this link in the ATAF website. So, ladies and gentlemen, this year we received 105 paper submissions, which represented over 160% growth compared to papers received last year, which were only 40. And I think it is important that you clap for yourselves. This growth is a testament that there is huge appetite translating into participation from the researchers from academia, policymakers, civil society organizations, and other backgrounds. Now, out of the 105, the ATRN Scientific Committee selected 46 papers for presentation. These are the papers that were presented. So, to all the others who submitted their papers and those who eventually presented their papers, the ATRN board says a big thank you. The review process of the papers was done by a pool of experts from the ATRN Scientific Committee. About 114 have applied so far, and about 78 people were accepted to review the papers. I'm talking about the experts. And so we would like to especially thank the ATRN Scientific Committee members for your time, for your effort, and for your expertise in providing constructive input into the papers. Please note that we are still accepting applications for those who wish to be permanent ATRN scientific committee members. And so to you all experts, professors, and researchers, and all those that have extensively published, you're most welcome to apply to join the scientific committee of the ATRN. And of course, you'll find an application link on the ATAF website. Let me now go to the Best Paper Awards. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the most exciting moment, and that is the Best Paper Awards. And like I said before, we shall award papers in two categories: the overall Best Paper Awards category and the Best Developing Research Paper Awards category. So before I announce the winners, I wish to emphasize why the ATRN Advisory Board thought of, giving these awards. So the aims of the awards are as follows. Number one, to promote excellence in tax research. Number two, to encourage innovation. Number three, to enhance visibility and career progression of researchers in the area of tax. And number four, to encourage upcoming researchers. So, in arriving at the winners, a multi-stage evaluation criteria was followed, and it involved the following steps. Number one, double-blind peer review process by the scientific committee members, presentation at the Congress, final determination by a jury comprising of experts from various disciplines and language backgrounds. And it's good for me to note here that the jury actually listened to presentations in the background. And number four, all these papers were selected based on relevance to the theme, creativity, originality, relevance, practical applicability, and rigor of methodology. So, the winners for today will be awarded with a trophy and a certificate. And therefore, ladies and gentlemen, at this stage, may I ask the Executive Secretary of ATAF, Mr. Logan Watt, and the Commissioner General of Tanzania Revenue Authority, Mr. Alfayo Kidata, and the Chairperson of the ATRN, Professor Annette Ogutu, please to stand, and Prof, please come forward so that we can present these trophies to the best papers. So I will start with the developing researcher category, and I'll start with number 3. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the paper that scopes the 3rd award under the developing researcher paper category is a paper that was themed VAT and economic development in WAEMU countries. This paper was written and presented by Mr. Pasoki Adoki, who is a doctoral student So, Mr. Pasoki Adoki is a doctoral student in economics at the University of Kara and the head of Tax Operations Division, Eastern Plateau, Togo Revenue Authority. Please give him a clap again. Please step forward, Mr. Adoki. And to the awardees, the certificates will be given after this event. Thank you very much, Mr. Adoki. Maybe you can stand there for a photo with our dignitaries. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I now wish to go to the second best researcher in the area of developing researcher paper awards. And the title of this paper is The Effects of Exchange Rate Dynamics on Tax Revenues Collection. Evidence from Malawi. So that tells you where the researcher comes from. And the researcher is none other than Mr. Humbolane Chavula, research analyst, Malawi Revenue Authority, and a master's student at the University of Malawi. Congratulations. Yeah, please take a photo with our dignitaries. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we have the overall winner in that category, the category of developing research papers. And these are researchers who have been here before, and they have won before, last year. And so this is a paper that was co-published, or rather co-authored, sorry. And the title of the paper is, Do Teletax Reforms Reduce Tax Compliance Costs in Africa? A difference approach. And the authors of this paper are two. Mr. Nasibo Basongui from the University of Abomey, Calavi, Benin, and Mr. Albert N. Honlongku from the University of Abomey, Calavi, Benin. Are they here with us? Looks like they are not here with us. If this was a different game, we would have looked for another winner, but we can't do that now. I'm told they are somewhere in the building. So we will pen that one until they come from wherever they are. Someone is calling them. I don't know what they're doing in a different part of the building. And so, ladies and gentlemen, we have the overall Best Paper Award. This is the overall winner of all the papers that were presented during this particular Congress. Have they come? Now, I'm trying to hold so that I can see whether there is any sign that maybe the lifts are not working. Okay. So we go to the overall Best Paper Award. And after rigorous assessment of all the papers, the scientific committee agrees that the best paper for this year is a paper titled, "Does Taxation Promote Industrial Development in Africa?" And there's a paper that was co-authored by Dr. Bate Akwete Pauline. He is a doctor of economics and head of strategic planning, research and strategic planning directorate from the Togo Revenue Authority. Not too fast, not too fast. The paper was co-authored together with Dr. Douda Wedikoma. Is he around? Okay. Who is a tax inspector and head of the audit section at the Large Enterprise Directorate of the Togo Revenue Authority. So please, can we give a big applause to these amazing researchers? Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be picking a lot of lessons and policies from some of these papers, which we can implement across our revenue authorities in Africa. I'm just wondering whether the other category, whether they are, okay. Thank you very much to our dignitaries. So, ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the close of that session. And we want to encourage all the researchers to keep participating. As you are aware, there is another process that will continue after this. And this is a process of making corrections, as has been given to you by the scientific committee and by the audiences during this Congress. And once we have made those corrections, then decisions will be taken as to which papers will be published in the AMTJ, in our journal. And so the fact that you didn't come forward here does not mean that is the end. And I want to also mention that it is possible that even those who have received awards today, if you don't do corrections as has been suggested by the scientific committee, there is also a possibility that you might go away with a trophy and your paper still does not get published in the journal. So there is a longer process ahead of us. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it is my humble duty to, on behalf of the African Tax Research Network and the African Tax Administration Forum, to read the outcome statement of this particular Congress. I will try to move through this very fast, of course, taking into consideration that we have interpretation that is happening. So the African Tax Administration Forum, ATAF, jointly organized its 8th African Tax Research Network, ATRN, Annual Congress in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, from the 29th to the 31st of August 2023 at the Johari Rotana Hotel with the Tanzania Revenue Authority, TRA, and in partnership with GIZ. 235 participants from a total of 43 countries. Please clap for yourselves. From a total of 43 countries were in attendance. 35 of these were African countries. There were participants from ministries of finance, the African tax administrations, members of parliament, civil society, the justice system, the academia, development partners, the private sector, media practitioners, and other key partners and individual tax policy experts. The purpose of the Congress was to deliberate on the contemporary issues in the area of taxation and their impact on domestic revenue mobilization. The Honorable Professor Adolf F. Mkenda, MP, Minister of Education, Science, and Technology of the Republic of Tanzania, graced the opening ceremony on behalf of the Vice President of the United Republic of Tanzania, together with several other dignitaries, including Honorable Hamad Hassan Chande, MP, who is the Deputy Minister for Finance and Planning of the United Republic of Tanzania, Mr. Alfayo Kidata, the Commissioner General of Tanzania Revenue Authority, and we appreciate, sir, Mr. Logan Watt, the Executive Secretary of ATAF, and Professor Annette Ogutu, the Chairperson of the ATRN Advisory Board. In his remarks, the ATAF Executive Secretary appreciated the government of Tanzania for hosting the event, and specifically the Tanzania Revenue Authority for always taking a leading role in supporting ATAF in its quest to improve tax revenue administration on the continent. Furthermore, the Executive Secretary pointed delegates to the strides that have been made over time, which have led to increasing interest from stakeholders to continue working with both ATAF and ATRN. Mr. Watt informed the delegates that Africa annually loses more than $88 billion through illicit financial outflows. This includes money from tax evasion and other criminal activities which undermine Africa's development and governance agenda. He further indicated that there are sectors of the economy that pose a higher risk to IFFs, such as the extractive sector, which sometimes incentivizes rent-seeking behavior, and which is more prone to generate IFFs in the form of trade mispricing and BEPS. He urged delegates to carefully use the rich ideas, research findings, and recommendations that were to be presented by others during the Congress. In supporting Africa's efforts to combat IFFs and mobilize revenue for sustainable development, he indicated that ATAF, as a key partner, has extended its technical support to 30 African countries to develop skills, capacity, and systems in transfer pricing, sector-specific audits, data analytics, and taxation of the digital economy, among others. The chairperson of the ATRN Advisory Board, Professor Annette Ogutu, introduced the ATRN Advisory Board and highlighted the key milestones attained by the board within a few months of operation. Professor Ogutu further informed the delegates of the strategy and action points that the board has set to attain during its tenure, which will lay a foundation and build a legacy for the ATRN. Professor Ogutu further made a call to all the delegates that the time to arise and correct the facts that there is a dearth in African tax research is now. She acknowledged some challenges such as lack of capacity financially and human tax capacity, especially in universities in Africa, but also indicated a slow but sure change in the trajectory over the years, calling each individual to play their part in changing this narrative. Mr. Alfayo Kidata, the Commissioner General for Tanzania Revenue Authority, expressed his gratitude to ATAF for considering TRA in hosting the 8th ATRN Congress. He underscored the importance of this event and indicated that the centrality of taxation in Africa and domestic resource mobilization initiatives make the work of ATAF a key response to the taxation challenge in Africa. Honorable Hamad Hassan Chande, the Tanzania Deputy Minister for Finance, indicated that this Congress is a testament to the growing importance of tax research in Africa and encouraged researchers to continue conducting research. Honorable Chande remarked that the global taxation landscape is undergoing significant reforms and that Africa finds herself in a great need to capitalize on these changes. Addressing the delegates, the chief guest, Professor Adolf Mkenda, the Minister for Education, Science, and Technology of the United Republic of Tanzania, alluded to the fact that the African continent is reeling from the economic fallout resulting from disruptions in global supply chains caused by the Russia-Ukraine conflict, tightening global financial conditions, dwindling overseas development assistance, soaring debt, the negative effects of climate change, and others. The chief guest shared with the delegates that Tanzania has embarked on a transformative tax reform process that includes enhancing fairness and efficiency in the tax system. The chief guest made a plea to the delegates alongside the main themes to brainstorm on 4 elements that require informed guidance to improve taxation, which include, number 1, innovative solutions to mounting transfer pricing challenges, measures to address problems of asymmetric information, which hinders countries from effective taxation of e-businesses, carbon credit trade, natural resources value chain, and tourism. And number 3, deliberate on tax incidences as countries' taxation policies are increasingly skewed to consumption and income taxes. And number 4, he also emphasized the need for us to step up research in the area of the digital economy. The participants, in ensuing discussions, concurred that the increasing digital economy has impacted the global taxation landscape, with some African countries who are members of the inclusive framework discussing the adoption of the 2-pillar solution advocated by the OECD, while others have gone ahead with unilateral measures such as the introduction of the Digital Service Tax DST, with all of them aiming to avoid continued revenue loss. The participants also agreed that the benefits from Pillar 1 remain minimal to developing countries, including African countries, and that the countries need to urgently evaluate the implications of the tax reforms and how this shall impact tax collection. So the meeting held the increased leadership of the AUC in guiding tax policy, the participation of ATAF in the global discussions, and its technical support to African countries. The meeting noted that while 27 countries are members of the OECD Inclusive Framework, very few countries actively participate in the discussions. It was underscored that African tax policymakers should assume a more prominent role in future tax discussions. The participants welcomed that the African Union is leading the upcoming discussions, technically supported by ATAF, UNECA, and other continental organizations. The meeting noted ATAF's readiness to support African countries in conducting country-specific impact assessments that will include the assessment of size of the digital economy, cost-benefit analysis for a country to consider taxing the digital economy, estimation of the tax revenue potential from the digital economy, among others. The meeting also agreed that instead of relying on taxation agendas set externally, Africa needs to set its own taxation agenda, and that the AU platform should be supported and strengthened to ensure a common African position. And as we come towards the end, the participants highlighted various obstacles that hinder taxing high network individuals and discussed various ways of overcoming those particular challenges. The meeting recommended focused profiling of high wealth individuals as tax administration customers, including their overall compliance behavior. The participants further noted that success in taxing high net worth individuals was attained where countries have a whole of government approach and where countries have invested in exchange of information. The meeting unanimously agreed that there were lots of potential for revenue in various sectors, and some of those sectors were covered during the research presentations. On unleashing the wealth within, harnessing Africa's natural resources through effective taxation, the participants were presented with various ideas that countries have implemented with success, and these were compiled into a handbook by ATAF and the Intergovernmental Forum on Minerals and Metals, IGF. And as I come to the close, I'm trying to shorten this. In support of the revenue mobilization efforts on the continent, ATAF launched 3 of its products during the Congress, aiming at publicizing its work and encouraging stakeholders to make use of its offerings. The Volume 3 of the AMTJ, the African Tax Outlook, the one we've just launched, and the Environmental Fiscal Reforms Handbook were some of the books that were launched. As is the tradition of the Congress, participants had the opportunity to listen to well-researched paper submissions from various authors selected from 105 that were submitted on different topics, providing authors with comments to improve the papers for possible publication in ATAF's African Multidisciplinary Tax Journal and for publication in other journals. 3 best papers were identified and rewarded in the developing researcher category, and an overall paper was awarded. Finally, the participants thanked Tanzania and ATAF for organizing the meeting and committed to continue the discussion on possible solutions to existing and potential avenues for improving taxation in Africa. ATAF stakeholders and partner institutions were further urged by participants to continue leading debates in the global tax reforms for Africa, provide guidance on potential avenues for the continent to benefit from taxation of extractives, widening tax net and tax base through taxation of high net worth individuals, whilst harnessing technology in Africa. And so, ladies and gentlemen, the outcome statement is a long statement that you're going to find in the ATAF website. What I have done is just paraphrased. There were many other things that were discussed here, and when you go through the whole statement, you'll be able to find out all the issues that were canvassed. And so it is now my humble duty to bow out of stage and invite the moderator. Thank you very much.
Dear delegates, we now come to that moment that in Africa we don't like much. When we receive visitors in Africa, it is so sad to see them leaving us. But then we have no choice because we've been here for 3 days. We have to come to that moment where to bring this Congress to a conclusion. However, one thing that I have to assure you, Commissioner General, is that we still have the delegates for 2 days here. There are some attending the master class tomorrow, and we will still have to go with them to Zanzibar. So we are assured that our revenue collection next month will have an input from them through the expenditures for the next 2 days. On that note, may I kindly invite Mr. Logan Watt, the Executive Secretary of ATAF, to come and give a few words, and thereafter invite the Commissioner General for the closing remarks.
Thank you, Richard. Good afternoon, everybody. We've come to the end of 3 very exciting days, and Mr. Alfayo Kidata, Commissioner General of Tanzania Revenue Authority, Honorable Judge Adam Mambi, Judge of the High Court, Professor Annette Ugutu, Chairperson of the ATRN Advisory Board, and members of the board, all distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of this, our 8th ATRN conference on contemporary tax issues in Africa, being the theme. We've discussed, amongst other things, how the continent can leverage and profit from global tax reforms, how to tax high net worth individuals, and how to effectively benefit and tax Africa's natural resources, and how to leverage the benefits of digital transformation that has taken the center stage in tax administration across the continent. The discussions have been rich and engaging. Both the policy panels as well as the research papers reviews were deeply positive. The research sessions were robust and at times tough on those whose papers were presented here. I trust that the engagement helped to enrich the content and research design of your work. The content has certainly enriched the continental thought leadership basket. So, thank you all for your contributions during the sessions of the last 3 days. The feedback from different participants I've interacted with indicates a good experience overall. So those tax administrations, universities, graduates, those representatives from the business sector, participants, our academic professionals present, all of you, a big thank you from ATAF. It is for me important to mention that the topics covered in the research directly feed into what we call the ATAF New Decade Strategy, taking our organization and our support to African domestic revenue mobilization to the next level. Part of our strategy is to use data and research in influencing change in tax policy and tax reforms in administration. Our vibrant ATRN board is very steadily leading us on this trajectory, and we certainly can anticipate productive and exciting times ahead. Thank you very much to all of you. And so what happens now? Now work on improving the papers, work on the 4th African Multidisciplinary Tax Journal, and work to build the structure of the African Tax Research Network under the leadership of this new board must continue in all earnest. We have heard the vision of this board from Professor Ogutu when she spoke on day one. We will now formalize our membership provisions and improve the research and quality assurance of the work under the leadership of this board for our members. Revenue mobilization, tax policy, and tax administration are critical to the African development agenda. We must therefore act now. We must write our own stories. We must build our own databases. We must do our own statistical analysis and draw from our own intellectual capabilities to return Africa to its rightful place in providing quality of life for African people, so that no one needs to drown in the Mediterranean Sea trying to reach Europe for a better life. We must create that life here, so that nobody needs to die searching for a better life. And so finally, I wish to express my gratitude to everybody who's made this Congress possible. First, I wish to thank the government and the United Republic of Tanzania, through you, Mr. Kidata, Commissioner General, and your management team for being the most gracious host and gracing this Congress at the highest levels of government. To Richard Kayombo, ATAF country correspondent and stalwart of ATAF, to you and the organizing team, your commitment and teamwork and professionalism was outstanding. We hugely appreciate you all. Thank you very much. The academic institutions here in Tanzania that have collaborated with us in sharing parallel research sessions in the webinar, the Institute of Finance Management, the University of Dar es Salaam, the Institute of Tax Administration, thank you to all of you for contributing to our success. Honorable Abubakar Nakanabo is on a sightseeing tour of Dar es Salaam, so let me thank him in his absence. He said he's leaving and he wants to see the city. So we appreciate the presence of Honorable Nakanabo from Burkina Faso. I greatly appreciate this board of the African Tax Research Network for steering all of this. Our speakers, our moderators, for the time and effort you've put in to prepare this conference. The wisdom you have shared is outstanding and highly valued. To all the authors, this is about you. To all the authors who presented papers at this Congress, thank you for making this happen. And I urge you now to incorporate the comments given, improve your papers, submit your articles for consideration for the 4th volume of the African Multidisciplinary Tax Journal. Let me appreciate all our donors that graciously sponsors the work of ATAF. There are many of them in the UK, the Netherlands, Ireland, Denmark. When I start to mention, I'm going to miss out some, so I apologize. And of course, German cooperation through GIZ, which played a particularly strong role in this conference. Thank you to our service providers, interpreters, events management team, the media personnel, the videographers and photographers. This is a lovely hotel, Richard, and thank you for choosing it. The health teams, and to the ATAF team that coordinated this whole event, led by the head of the ATAF Tax Academy, Ms. Caroline Mutaya Barwa, who always accuses me of getting her surname wrong. The content and support teams, you never disappoint. Thank you to the Deputy Executive Secretary for her leadership, Mary Baini, in all of this. Finally, let me conclude by wishing all of you a safe journey back home. And please feel free to reach out to ATAF and or the ATRN whenever you need to press on our button. Asante sana. It is my singular privilege and honor to invite now the Commissioner General of Tanzania Revenue Authority, Mr. Alfayo Kidata, to come and close the conference.
Honorable Abubakar Nakanabo, Minister of Finance, Republic of Burkina Faso, my friend Mr. Rogat Watt, Executive Secretary, African Tax Administration Forum, Professor Annette Ogutru, Chairperson, ATRN Advisory Board, esteemed colleague, distinguished participants and delegates from various tax administration, ladies and gentlemen, good evening now, I think. It is truly an honor to stand before you again today at this closing ceremony of the 8th Annual Congress of the African Tax Research Network in Dar es Salaam. Our gathering here has been full of inspiration, engagement, through insightful discussion on crucial matters around taxation in the African continent. As we bring this Congress to the close, I would like to reflect on some of the key themes we have explored and the path that lies ahead of us. In this era of significant global tax reforms, transformation and technological development, Africa finds itself in a situation that demands critical considerations, strategic actions, and collective efforts by every one of us in the revenue collection fraternity. As our continent experiences rapid economic growth through digitalization of businesses and the presence of high net worth individuals, we are faced with due challenges. To harness the opportunities presented by these changes while safeguarding our tax revenue base. Distinguished participants, as we have observed in the course of the week, the complexities of the tax high net worth individual cannot be overemphasized. Their substantial assets, devised investment strategies, and a global presence create intricate tax considerations that require innovative solutions to tap into this area. Throughout this Congress, we have discussed how complex and the tax puzzle surrounding this privileged segment of our society. Our discussions have centered on the wealth accumulations, asset management, and the tax planning with a focus on fostering a comprehensive, outstanding understanding of the existing frameworks, regulatory landscapes, and the best practices around the world. The rise of the digital economy also poses even much more serious and complex challenges in taxing transactions that take place electronically, especially when companies operate across the border without a physical presence. During our plenary as well as our breakaway sessions, we have discussed on the complexities of the current global tax rules taxing the digital economy, whereby the world is yet to reach a consensus. We have seen how global tax reforms under the proposed two-pillar solutions create stimulating discussions on the part of developing countries, given the fact that the proposed reforms tend to provide more taxing rights to countries of residence as opposed to the country of source. We have also discussed the unique tax governance challenges faced by African countries in the resource sector. The progress made by African countries in leveraging technology for revenue mobilization, Africa success stories, and other contemporary taxation challenges. Distinguished participants, Africa's contemporary taxation challenges are complex but surmountable to date. By adopting comprehensive reforms, enhancing capacity, and fostering international collaborations, Africa can navigate out of these challenges and lay the foundation for sustainable economic growth, social progress, and a brighter future for our continent. As we gather here today, there is a need to appreciate that contemporary taxation challenges that Africa is facing in the dynamic and the evolving global economic landscape have a direct correlation to our continent's economic growth, social development, and human prosperity, and the overall progress which are attained. Many of the challenges we confront in Africa require one biggest solution, and that is to mobilize sufficient tax revenue to fund critical public services, infrastructure projects, and the social welfare programs. Distinguished participants, one other challenge we face is the fact that multinational corporations often manipulate their transactions through transfer pricing arrangements, which shift profits to low tax jurisdiction, thereby reducing their tax liability in African countries. Making international tax cooperation through instruments such as double taxation agreements is crucial for preventing double taxation, ensuring fairness, and at the same time combating tax evasion. Distinguished participants, during our discussion, we have acknowledged the immense potential of Africa's abundant natural resources, which gives us room for outstanding development through optimal use of these extractive resources endowed in our countries. Yet, to fully realize the benefits of these resources, we must implement effective tax policies that promote transparency, accountability, and the fair distribution of revenue. By doing so, we can channel the proceeds from extractive industries into vital sectors such as education, healthcare, infrastructure, and the social welfare programs. Moreover, we are not blind to the unique challenges that come with managing the resource sector. We are faced with questions of fair taxation, transparency, and the equitable distribution of wealth. These challenges underscore the need for robust regulatory frameworks that balance economic growth with responsible resource management. As we depart from this Congress, let us carry with us the insights, ideas, and the collaborative spirit that have defined our discussions. Let us commit to fostering a tax landscape that supports sustainable development, empowers our economies, and safeguards the well-being of our citizens. I extend my gratitude to each of you for your dedication, passion, and the commitment to advancing the field of taxation in Africa. Our work here is far from over, but together we have taken significant strides towards shaping a brighter future for our continent. Let us continue this journey of progress and transformation. Distinguished participants, As we wrap up, I urge you to take a moment to look ahead to the exciting experiences that await some of us who have registered for the excursion trip to the captivating island of Zanzibar on the 2nd of September. It is truly a special opportunity to explore a place known for its unique blend of history, culture, and natural beauty. Zanzibar holds a wealth of experiences from its unpolluted beaches and the turquoise waters to its historical sites and rich history. As you venture to this enchanting destination, I encourage you to reflect on the abundance of the God-given wealth in each of our countries that we can utilize effectively to raise more revenue for our economies. And while in Zanzibar promises are remarkable experiences, I am confident that this is only the beginning of the adventure that lies ahead for all of us. As we convene again in the future, we have the prospect of discovering other incredible attractions that our Tanzania has to offer in the likes of Mount Kilimanjaro, the Serengeti National Park, Ngorongoro Crater, and other, just to mention but a few. These destinations are not just places on a map. They are opportunities to connect with nature, history, and the true essence of our region. They offer us a chance to gain a deep understanding of our remarkable biodiversity, culture, landscapes that define Tanzania and Africa as a whole. Distinguished participants, before I conclude, may I take this opportunity once again to thank Mr. Logan Watt, the Executive Secretary of ATAF, his entire team, and the ATRN Advisory Body for having chosen Tanzania as a venue for the 8th ATRN Congress 2023, and I hope we have met your expectations. I can assure you that on our part, it was very satisfying to have you here, as we have also benefited by bringing along a good number of participants that would otherwise not been able if the Congress was to take place somewhere else. I would like to thank my team, the organizing committee, that worked tirelessly with the ATAF team to bring this conference to a reality and a success. My sincere appreciation to the management of Johari Rotana Dar es Salaam. Thank you for serving us warmly. Distinguished participants, as you travel back to meet your loved ones, do not forget to buy them a couple of memorable goodies from Tanzania, which expenditures will also count on our revenue collections next month. We wish you a safe travel back home and looking forward to see you back soon for more ATAF events or for visit with your families. Honorable Minister of Finance, Burkina Faso, Executive Secretary, colleague, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, on this note, I wish to pronounce that the 8th Annual Congress of the African Tax Research Network has come to an end. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Asante sana. Merci beaucoup. Muito obrigado.
Sorry, before you leave, CG and Executive Secretary, before you leave, there's a small token from CG to the Executive Secretary of ATAF in remembrance of this Congress. And that's because Logan whispered to me that he will not be going to Zanzibar. So as you travel back to South Africa, please put that on. Thank you. Now we've come to the end of our closing ceremony. And as I announced, the dinner is tonight. It's at 7 p.m. The dress code is casual. And please, don't miss the dinner. As you walk out, please make sure you take a souvenir and mention your size so that they get you the right size. It will be nice to see you dressed nicely in that attire that you've seen that Logan has got. So if you don't take yours, don't blame us. That will be your fault. It doesn't matter whether you're going to Zanzibar or not. As long as you're a delegate, you will get one for yourself. You'll put it on the plane as you go back home. Thank you, and you're most welcome. See you at 7.